Hey everyone, Chris Knott here from Reprogrammed. Today, let's go ahead and reprogram your bench press. I don't know of any guy who secretly doesn't want to bench press more. And it's a great upper body, chest, arm, lat developer. And the reason why I say lat is because when you are bench pressing correctly, you are learning how to pull the bar down to you, not resist it like you're trying to resist a force from gravity. And that's really important for your proper setup. So if you haven't already seen my video on the what we call our ISO or ISO Extreme push-up, I want you to go back to watch that so that you get the concept and the idea of really pulling into position. That is really crucial. Just like when we land, we have to land by pulling down into the ground, not resisting the ground, because that's when bad things happen. So here we go. Let's get started on your bench press form. First thing on the bench press, we got to make sure that our setup is correct. We're just going to use a traditional bar today. In my gym, again, I've got a lot of specialty bars that have different purposes in terms of recruitment of different muscle groups because of the different biomechanics or whatnot. But most people, we're just going to start with the straight bar, and that's how I want you to learn. I also want you to learn with a free-floating straight bar, not a Smith machine, because when you start with the Smith machine, it's going to be in a locked-in position, and it's going to do a lot of the balancing for you. Now, as we get further along and we want to use the Smith machine for more like hypertrophy, bodybuilding type of aesthetics, and we can really target different angles, I love the Smith machine for that. But for learning purposes, I really want you to learn on the good old school straight bar bench press, because that form is going to carry over into all other bench press forms. So with our setup, the first thing is looking actually at our J hooks on the rack. A lot of people will just jump into a bench, or unfortunately, if you go to a traditional gym, it might only have one position and it's a one size fits all. The problem with that is everyone's arm length is a little bit different. So my preference is to always be in a rack type of situation where I can actually adjust these J hooks for the appropriate height. So as I lay down here, I want you to see that I'm gonna get in position, I'm gonna get my grip, and actually, that's a good point too. Based upon if I have a narrow, mid, or wide grip, that might change my actual J-hook position. I'm gonna start with a little bit wider grip for demonstration purposes, and because of that, when I set up in my wide grip, I only have to lock out that much. It's very small, and we have this little lip right here that we have to clear. The reason this is important is if I'm way too far down, then I have to press the bar up already to clear the hooks. We don't want that. Obviously, if it's too high, I can't get it on. And you might find there's a position where it might feel fine when you first take it off, but then as the bar comes off, if you have a lot of weight, it sinks you into the bench, and then all of a sudden you're reaching up to get it back. So we don't want that either. I like it so that I have maybe just about half an inch to 1 inch of lockout when my back is in the correct setup position. And then when we take it off, I'm not pushing up and out, I'm actually pulling in this direction like that straight arm lat pull to pull the bar so that my back stays locked in and tight. But I'm gonna go over that here right now. So once we have our setup, we have our bench in position, I want you to slide your body in a position. So if you look at me from the side, I'm gonna line up with my eyes directly under the bar. If I'm too far this way, then sometimes I have a tough time getting into the rack, and I'm very unstable in this position. If I'm too far back in this direction, it's easier to take it out, but a lot of times what will happen is I'm coming up here, I'm gonna hit these J hooks. So a good starting point is get your eyes directly underneath the bar. This is where we want to be. All right. All right, so that's our setup from the height of the bar and then my body position as it relates to the bench and my eyes underneath the bar. But let's go ahead and talk about the setup. So quick review, when we get in our setup, I need my shoulder blades packed back and down here. I want you to see just from the front here, if I'm packed back and down. See what that does to my elbows? See how it brings them in? And if I bend my arms, now you can see my elbows are about a 45-degree position away from my body. Now, watch what happens when I let my shoulder blades go. My elbows want to flare up here. A lot of times if you see people, especially when they get to a weight where they're doing that last rep and it's too heavy, what happens is the elbows flare out, and there's two primary weaknesses in the bench press. And the number one actually is the tricep, because if you think about it, I'm extending the elbow this direction, and if my tricep can't finish the push, then my brain goes, I gotta find a different way to do this. So even if you have a strong lat, which is actually the number two weakness, is if the back is not strong, the elbows flare out because now I'm doing this motion like a pec deck, but you can see where does that put the pressure? Puts the pressure right here on my shoulder. Where do you think most people get shoulder pain from bench pressing or any kind of push-up or any kind of press forward in that matter? It's because their elbows are flaring and they're doing a pec deck horizontal position as opposed to locking in the back. So I'm actually scooping from the lat, because the lat is going to pull the elbow in this direction, and then I finish the motion with the tricep. So again, this idea of pulling into position, I'm going to pull the bar to me, which naturally brings the bar lower to my chest, and then I'm gonna scoop from the lats, finish with the tricep. But notice my shoulders stay back and down the whole time, so it's truly a chest, lat, tricep exercise, not a chest, shoulder exercise. This is the number one thing that we gotta work on in this form. All right, so there's a couple different ways to find that nice, what I call packed lat position in our setup. But I'm gonna show you one way, which is my primary favorite way of doing it. And this is a great way to teach it. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lie down, I'm gonna get my eyes underneath the bar, but then I'm gonna bring my feet up onto the bench. From here, I'm gonna lift my hips up and I'm going to pull my shoulder blades and use my feet to push. If you can see, I'm pushing my traps into the bench. This is why really good benches for bench pressing have, they're not slick. They actually have good texture, and we don't want to put like towels and stuff because I'm pushing this way. And I'm showing you this because to bench press correctly from a, we'll call it a powerlifting standpoint, where I'm trying to do as much weight as possible, it's not just an upper body exercise, it's actually a total body, because I'm gonna use the ground and I'm going to press through my legs, through my torso, into my spine, and I'm pressing into the bench. And as I press into the bench, now I have a solid platform to drive the bar away. So another bench press concept is I'm not necessarily pushing the bar away from me. What I'm really doing is I'm pressing my back into the bench. So here's a visual for you. If you had a big refrigerator in the middle of your kitchen and it's moving day and you asked me to come over to help you move your refrigerator, imagine I'm standing in the middle and the refrigerator's heavy and I go to push it. Because the refrigerator weighs more than me, what's gonna happen? I'm gonna push, and instead of the refrigerator moving, I'm gonna go back in the opposite direction. So if I had to move the refrigerator in that method, what would be a smart way to do it? If there was a way that I could find a wall and wedge myself into the wall, now when I press, I can use all of my strength because my body isn't going the other way. It's forced against the wall. And as I push into the wall, now the refrigerator moves away from me. That's in essence what we're doing with this. I want to use this bench as that wall. I want to wedge myself into the wall, the bench, and then because I'm locked in and I'm driving with my legs into my torso, now I can actually engage all of my muscles to now push and drive the bar away. So if you've watched my deadlift video, it's the same concept. We don't think about picking the bar up, we think about pushing the earth away, but because the earth's not moving, where does everything else go? It goes up. And if we switch that mentality and create that feel, you're gonna be more rooted, you're gonna be more grounded, you're gonna have better stability, and guess what? The brain likes it when we feel solid. When the brain says, I'm solid, it's gonna allow you to recruit more muscle, as opposed to if you're unsteady, then the brain recruits less, and therefore your display is less weight. Why does this matter? Because you've seen people where like they bring their feet up off the bench and all of that. It's not that that's wrong per se, but it's not going to create the ability to lift as much weight, and without as much weight, you're not putting as much stimulus, therefore it's gonna be less muscle growth. Now, if you're doing it just because you're trying to get stable, or let's say people are like, I wanna work my core, well, there's a lot better ways to do that. So if your goal is stability, let's go do stability exercises. But if your goal is to bench press a crap ton of weight, whether it's for powerlifting, for sports, or because I just want a lot of weight for a lot of stimulus so that I can get the most amount of growth in my body, then let's do it this way so that you can actually drive with the most amount of stimulus, both physically with the weight as well as neurologically. Because again, if I'm recruiting more motor patterns and more motor units, my nervous system is operating at a higher level, which is just gonna work throughout the total body. Okay, so from this position here, I've got my eyes underneath the bar. Now, what I didn't mention the last step was we're gonna get our grip next. So most people will either start from a thumb on the edge of the knurl to a pinky on what we call the power ring, somewhere in here. This is going to be our moderate bench press. A wide bench press would be considered once our index finger gets to the power ring and we're outside of that. A narrow would be when the index finger starts on the smooth or anywhere closer. So if I'm in a narrow grip, I'm really focused on more tricep extension. If I'm wide grip, I'm focused more on lat and chest. If I'm somewhere in this middle range, I'm gonna focus on everything. So that's why I say that. But for today's purposes, I'm gonna start with my pinky on the power ring. I'm gonna grab, you can see I'm here, and then I always wrap the thumbs. So I never want to be here in the bench press. Now a Smith machine where it's holding the weight for you, that's a different story, because a lot of times we'll use the Smith machine for more tricep work. But the reason I don't want this in a bench press is it's an easy way to slip. And unfortunately, there's too many people who have hurt themselves really bad by dropping weight on their chest, on their throat, on their face, because the bar has slipped out of the hand. So always, always, always grip the bar with your thumbs. Unlike our back exercises where I told you to take the thumbs out, on the bench press, deadlifts, those kind of exercises, we want to squeeze the bar. And another reason we want to squeeze the bar is that it creates more tension. And there are exercises we want tension, like our power lifts, but there's other exercises we want to create relaxation, like in sprinting. This is a tension exercise. So we're going to get our grip, we're going to squeeze the bar. Once I have my grip, again, I'm gonna lift my hips, I'm gonna drive my shoulders back together and down into the pad. Once I have this position, now I'm gonna talk about how we bring our legs down. So from here, I'm gonna bring down a leg one at a time onto my toes, reaching kind of back if I can. So notice when I do that, my heels are off the ground and I'm gonna drive my heels down by pushing in the ground like I'm actually doing a leg extension. So I'm doing this. But the only difference is right now I have a flat back, so when I do that leg extension, I slide. Whereas once I have this nice packed arch where I can drive more in a 45-degree down into my traps, now when I do my push, see, I'm not gonna go anywhere, but I'm driving and my back wedges in like the refrigerator example. Now, another thing you might notice is, yes, there is this arch in my back. For a lot of untrained people, the arch in the back is controversial and they really don't understand the science behind it. So when you are bench pressing this way, first off, understand there's already a natural arch in your low back, so that's normal. But as I pull, as you can see, if I pull my shoulder blades together and I bring my rib cage up, it creates more of an arch. That's normal, that's okay. But the other thing about the arch is understand that the human body does not operate really in straight lines. Everything is truly rotational. If I throw a punch, it's not straight, it actually rotates. And this rotation from my torso, through my hips, through my shoulder, through even my forearm that rotates over. You can see this bone rotates over. There are too many things about the body that are rotational, and that's how we produce more power. When someone sprints, they're not actually pushing straight back. Their foot is coming in and it rotates. We actually go from the outside of the foot to the inside. So this is a concept in biomechanics that's really powerful in terms of just human performance. So as we do this, I want you to think that curves are actually a good thing. And when we bench press, the bar path isn't gonna be in an exact straight line. It's actually gonna scoop just slightly because of the nature of the rotation, and I can produce more torque. So there's nothing wrong with the force being transmitted from the ground, through my pelvis, through my spine into the bench, because we're creating those arches. And that's why you see good power lifters doing that. The only way to get hurt is if we raise the hips up, if we contort the body in an improper way, or if you're just freaking weak, like if your abs are weak and all that. So we haven't gotten to this yet, but I'm gonna talk about bracing within the spine in the exact same way that I taught in my squat tutorial on how we use our breath to brace, because I want this to be a 2x4. So when I drive from the ground, through my hips, through my spine, into my upper back, into my chest, into the bar, think of it as one single kinetic chain. I want you to think of it as a 2x4, not an actual chain that has motion, because imagine if I wanted to push a rubber pencil versus a wooden pencil, which one's easier for me to slide? That wooden pencil that's nice and solid, I can push it with one finger and the whole thing slides as one. If it were a rubber pencil, I push it and it kind of, or like imagine pushing a string, it's gonna go all sorts of different directions. So I don't want my body from the ground to the bar to be a string. I want it to be that nice, solid wooden pencil, one solid block, and that's how we produce power. Okay, so once again, we're gonna get our grip. My eyes underneath the bar. I bring my heels. I'm up here. I've locked in my shoulders. From this position, I bring my feet back and down, and my butt is down. Now notice, when I do my leg drive, I'm pushing my shoulders into the bench. I'm not pressing down to lift my hips up this way, because then there's no force transfer. I don't want force this way. I want force this way. Okay. So again, I'm locked in. Now, before I pick up the bar, the last thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna load that breath. So if you haven't seen my either breathing video or my squat tutorial, please go back and watch those, because we're gonna breathe not just from here, but from here and into my back. So this is nice and solid to support my spine. Once I take that breath and I'm locked in, I don't want to push up. You see, I just lost my shoulders. I'm going to pull, like if I had my hands and I'm pulling this direction, I'm gonna pull the bar this way over the center of my chest. So once again, eyes, grip, shoulders, my feet came down. I'm gonna breathe. I'm squeezing the bar. Now I pull. Do you see how it just barely cleared the J hooks? That's what I want. Now I'm locked in position. Again, from this angle, my elbows are in. My wrists are flat. Notice I'm not here. That hurts my wrists. Again, if I were to punch someone, I wouldn't punch them like this. I'm punching them like this. So we want a nice solid wrist. Another reason why we have to grip the bar in the bench press. All right, once again, eyes, grip, hips, feet are down, breath, grip, wrists are tight. I pull, now I settle. I never pull and come down. You can see I'm off balance here. So when I pull, I let it settle. Now we're gonna have that weight and let it even push your shoulders down. Now I'm good and settled. Again, if I need to, I'll exhale and inhale like our squat, but most of the time I'll breathe in, I'll pull here, I start my rep, which again, I'm going to pull the bar down, and then I'm gonna talk about the mechanics of driving the bar up, but I don't exhale until I'm all the way up. All right, so let's talk about the drive now. Again, I've gotten position, I've pulled, I'm gonna breathe in. First, I pull the bar to me, right? I'm gonna pull down like our iso push-up. Now it's time to drive. So it doesn't start with the bar, it's gonna start from the legs. See, I'm gonna push, I'm gonna do that leg extension, driving, not my hips off the bench, but back. That drive back loads me into the bench. Now it's like the wedge where I wedged myself into the wall pushing the refrigerator. So it's gonna go legs, and then I'm gonna go lat. See that lat right there is what drives it off the chest, okay? Just so you can see that. Again, from the previous example, when I pull from my lats, see how my hands naturally start to come out. That's that first few inches off the chest comes from the lats. So I go lats, and then you'll finish with the tricep. Any breakdown, you're gonna see the lats shut off, the elbow flare, and the compensation of doing this. All right, all together. Pull, good, legs, lats, triceps. Now, that happens all as one. I just wanted you to see the breakdown. But once again, in normal speed, I pull, legs, lats, triceps, pull, legs, lats, and triceps. Okay, that is the real breakdown. So when you see someone bench pressing a lot of weight, it's not quite as simple as just get underneath the bar, drop it down, and push it up. The timing of all of that, being in position, is what really matters. But here's the thing, not only will this technique allow you to bench press more, but to bench press more correctly, so you're gonna save your shoulders, you're gonna have better neural recruitment, more muscle fiber activation, which leads to more stimulus, which leads to bigger muscles, more definition, and everything you're looking for if you wanna have that monster bench press.